The flames of Mustafar still roared when Anakin Skywalker, mutilated and wrapped in pain, crawled away from the edge of the lava river. The heat burned his flesh, but as he managed to climb, the boiling lava ended up cauterizing his severed legs, though it did not burn his body entirely. The stench of his own scorched skin and the pain made Anakin scream. His arms, already weak, clung to the black rocks, trying to support his shattered body. When darkness nearly took him, Palpatine's ship descended between the flaming hills. The Emperor hurried down, his eyes glowing with dark satisfaction and also with doubt upon seeing the body of his new apprentice still alive. The following days were a torment of metal and flesh. In a secret medical station of the newly formed Empire, Anakin was rebuilt with strong, though awkward, mechanical legs. When he walked again, he felt the weight of each step echo through his body, as if the metal reminded him of his defeat. Palpatine, with his honeyed and venomous voice, repeated that Padme had died because of him. "You killed her in your fury, Lord Vader. It was the price of your power," he said, while feigning compassion. The name Darth Vader was reaffirmed as a symbol of fear, and Anakin, swallowed by a haze of guilt and rage, accepted the role of Reaper of the new Imperial regime. The years passed, and the missions came like storms. Orders to eliminate traitors, to crush rebellions before they could even bloom. On every planet, in every rebel cell destroyed, Anakin felt the Force screaming, not against the enemies of the Empire, but against himself. Behind the helmet, his eyes filled with doubt, the echoes of his former self. The Jedi Knight who believed in justice haunted his dreams. He began to sleep less, eat less, speak less. The mask was set aside for long hours of silence, until one cold night, in an abandoned base, he knelt before his red lightsaber and left it behind. He left without saying a word. The name Darth Vader vanished from official communications. The Emperor concealed the desertion as if it were part of a secret plan. Meanwhile, Anakin began his solitary journey. He didn't know where to go or who to seek. Everyone he had known and loved was dead. Everything he had watched grow before the Empire had disappeared. He had no direction, but traveled without pause, and his first destination was Mustafar. Before the same river where he had lost everything, he knelt and plunged his hands into the ash, as if trying to retrieve what had vanished there. Then, he flew to Geonosis. He walked among the skeletons of the ancient arenas, touched the ground where Padme had nearly died, and remembered the hope he had felt fighting beside her. He spoke to no one, continued alone, his heavy cloak covering his face. In Naboo, he hid among the flowered fields where he used to laugh. He entered the lake where he had once swum with Padme and let the cold waters envelop him for hours. Each memory was like an open wound, and little by little, he began to cry again. In Coruscant, he roamed in disguise through the ancient corridors of the Jedi Temple, now in ruins, touching with his fingers the pillars where he had learned to be a knight. In the city's lower alleys, he saw old holograms of himself as a general in the Clone Wars. His own image was now a ghost. Finally, he took a speeder toward the desert. The heat of Tatooine was no different from what he remembered, but his soul was colder. Anakin walked among the dunes until he spotted in the distance the house that had once belonged to Shmi, later to Owen. Vader stopped, staring at that vastness, and remembered his mother. He knelt, and in the distance, saw a boy playing with pieces of junk, improvised droids that buzzed and spun like the ones he himself used to create. The boy had curious eyes, and when he looked back in his direction, Anakin felt a chill. There was something familiar in that figure. The boy froze for a moment, then cautiously walked to the door and shouted, "Uncle Owen! There's a strange man standing by the gate." Owen came out quickly and, upon seeing the kneeling stranger, turned pale. "It's you," he said in a whisper. Years had passed, but that presence was unmistakable. Owen remembered the weary face that had brought Shmi's body home. They were half-brothers. He approached, hesitant, and Anakin simply bowed his head. "Luke," murmured Owen with a firm voice, "go call your aunt. Say, my uncle says Anakin is here." Inside the house, Beru dropped a bowl when she heard the name. She told Luke to run like never before and call old Ben Kenobi. The dust had barely settled on the ground when the boy was already climbing a trail into the hills. Beru ran to Owen, and together they approached Anakin, who still could not raise his eyes. Beru lightly touched his shoulder and said gently, "You're home." He entered with them. There were not enough words to explain what he felt, and so the powerful being said nothing. He simply walked in silence to the main room, where the old portraits still remained. That was when he saw the image of Shmi in a dusty frame, smiling. There, he stopped. The house seemed different from what he remembered. The walls had been painted, the furniture replaced, but the smell of sand and spices was still the same. For a moment, he saw himself as a boy again, hiding tools, dreaming of space. Owen and Beru stepped away quietly, giving him privacy. And as Anakin fixed his gaze on his mother's portrait, he felt something familiar in the atmosphere, like a distant but real presence. Time seemed suspended. The air shifted. When he turned, he saw the silhouette of a cloak approaching the entrance. A figure wrapped in light and shadow, who stopped at the door, as if also feeling the weight of that moment. The silence between them was more eloquent than any word. Anakin, motionless, felt his breath quicken, and an old guilt rise again within his chest. The visitor approached with slow steps, and then, stopping at the threshold of the room, he lifted his hood. It was at that moment that Obi-Wan Kenobi appeared before him. Obi-Wan said nothing when he entered. The silence between the two was heavy with years, memories, pain, and unspoken love. Anakin stared at him for a moment and, as if the defenses of an entire lifetime collapsed, he fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his tired face. "Obi-Wan, Master, forgive me." His voice broke. "I destroyed everything. I betrayed you. I betrayed the Order. I believed I was saving Padme, but I was the one who killed her. Everything I touched turned to ashes." Obi-Wan took a step forward, but Anakin lowered his head and continued. "I hear your screams in my dreams. I see your eyes on Mustafar. And still, you are here. Why?" Kenobi knelt before him, carefully placing a hand on his shoulder. "You were my brother, Anakin. I was afraid you were lost forever. But after seeing and hearing all this, I feel you are not completely lost. Or at least you're trying to find yourself. The Force. It hasn't given up on you." Anakin sobbed, trying to hold back the pain. Obi-Wan continued, his voice choked. "The shadow you carry doesn't erase the light that still shines within you. I see it. Coming back here, kneeling, crying over all of this. This is already the beginning of the path. The Force is not lost in you, Anakin." The two remained there, kneeling, as the desert evening died, as if time were finally granting a moment of redemption. In the days that followed, Obi-Wan once again guided Anakin through the foundations of the Force and Jedi philosophy. He didn't teach with the rigidity of the Republic days, but with humility. Anakin, now older, more wounded and more aware, accepted the lessons with gratitude. With each meditation, he saw a fragment of the old spark being reignited. Many weeks passed, but Kenobi came to trust his former Padawan again. And Anakin, at last, felt worthy to stand by his side. When Owen and Beru finally revealed that Luke was his son, Anakin simply nodded. "I knew. I felt it. How could I not? But I was afraid to approach him. I feel like I still owe a debt," he said with a melancholy smile. "So, I have to do something." Obi-Wan watched him in silence. He knew that decision was inevitable. Together, the two began to plan what would be the final act of their lives as warriors. Using old memories of the Senate corridors and the hidden paths only Vader and high-ranking officers knew, they devised a silent infiltration. On a moonless night, disguised and armed only with courage and a sense of duty, they departed in a small ship toward the Imperial Citadel, in the heart of Coruscant. Anakin, with his hood covering his face and his saber at his belt, looked like a shadow of the past returning to settle accounts. They entered the corridors with the precision of ghosts, Patrol drones were avoided, sensors deactivated with small gestures of the Force. Anakin knew every angle, every blind spot, every weak point of the system he had helped build. He was also pleased when he reclaimed his old saber, not the red one, but the blue. He knew where Palpatine kept his personal collection of fallen Jedi Masters and Knights' sabers. Obi-Wan followed him with trust, but a tight heart. They knew that once they crossed the final door, there would be no return. When they reached the throne room, Palpatine was already waiting. He was seated, smiling. "Lord Vader always knew he would return," he said, rising, and brought his obedient dog along. Anakin did not reply. He ignited the saber. Obi-Wan did the same. The battle was like an echo of old times, but with the weight of an era on their shoulders. Palpatine attacked with lightning of pure malice, mixing insults and laughter as he dueled. Obi-Wan retreated, dodged, struck. Anakin advanced, absorbing the enemy's hatred as one swallows poison to purge the body. The fight lasted long minutes until Palpatine, breathless, drew his saber. Obi-Wan took advantage of the opening and hurled him away with the Force. Anakin then grabbed the saber and advanced, but Palpatine raised a hand, pleading for mercy. "Have mercy, Anakin. I am the only one left," the former Jedi simply replied. "Exactly." He didn't use the saber. Instead, he raised his hand and with the Force grasped the Emperor's throat. The technique he had once enjoyed using as Vader, the same one used so many times in the name of fear, now served justice. Palpatine writhed, begged, but Anakin tightened his grip. His eyes wept, but his hand did not tremble. "For Padme, for the Jedi, for me." And then, the Sith's body fell lifeless. The silence that followed felt cosmic. Obi-Wan said nothing, only approached and placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder. For the first time in a long while, the burden felt lighter. News of Palpatine's fall spread like fire throughout the galaxy. Oppressed systems raised flags of revolt. The rebellion, once a spark, became a wildfire. Without their master, Imperial officers turned on each other, weakening the regime's foundation. In less than a year, the Empire had dissolved. Anakin did not seek fame, but became a symbol of redemption. To many, he was the man who killed the tyrant. To others, the Jedi who returned from the shadows. He met Leia first, in a meeting filled with silence and tension. But when he looked into the young woman's eyes, Anakin saw Padme. He felt small before her, but she listened. She said she didn't forgive him yet, but believed in change. When Luke saw him again, he ran to embrace him. There was no doubt, no hurt, no judgment in the son's heart. Only pure love. Anakin fell to his knees again, this time smiling. "I don't deserve this." Luke simply replied, "But you need it, and so do I." The strength of a father and son connected there, breaking the fate Palpatine had tried to impose. With Yoda, Obi-Wan, and other surviving Jedi, Anakin helped rebuild what had been destroyed. There was no rush, no glory, only service. The new Jedi Temple was built far from the shadows of the old Republic. The teachings would no longer be about war or moral supremacy, but about balance. Anakin preferred to teach the younger initiates, telling stories and guiding meditations with patience. It was a new beginning, but with roots in the past. The Force, once silent in his dreams, now whispered clearly, not as a scream, but as a song. At night, Anakin still dreamed of Padme, but now she smiled. He walked the temple corridors and felt that, for the first time, his heart beat in peace. Kenobi, older and serene, watched him from afar and knew. Anakin Skywalker had returned. The pain still existed, but it was part of the path. The cycle of pain that began with fear, anger, and loss now ended with forgiveness, sacrifice, and purpose. The galaxy entered a new era, not with the promise of perfection, but with the certainty that even the deepest darkness can be overcome. And among the vastness of the stars, the story of Anakin Skywalker echoed, not as the man who fell, but as the man who had the courage to return.